Let me tell you a story. Not the kind that starts with once upon a time and ends with a neat little bow. No, this one's messy. It's human. It's probably your story too, in one way or another. There was a time in my life when I thought I was waiting for something, waiting to feel ready, waiting to be confident, waiting for the right moment, the right people, the right mood, the right energy, the right weather, maybe even the right coffee. But that moment never came. And so I stayed the same dot. Each morning I'd wake up with 1,000 things in my mind, promises I made to myself the night before. Tomorrow I'll start, I'll finally go all in, I'll write, I'll build, I'll run, I'll speak up, I'll stop hiding. And every day, I didn't, because the moment the day started, distractions came crashing in like waves. My phone buzzed, my inbox filled, my friends texted, my doubts whispered, my fatigue clung to my body like a heavy blanket. My fears, oh, my fears, they shouted louder than anything else. You're not good enough. Who are you kidding? Other people are already doing it better. You'll fail. You always do. No one will care. That's the thing about fear. It doesn't just speak, it screams. And when you're tired or alone or uncertain, it becomes the voice you believe the most. And I believed it for years. You see, I wasn't lazy. I had big dreams, big plans. I wrote them down, made vision boards, read the books, bought the gear, subscribed to the podcasts. I even signed up for courses I didn't finish. I did everything except start, because deep down I thought greatness was something that showed up when life felt perfect. I thought success meant feeling inspired all the time. I thought champions were people who woke up at 5 a.m. every morning because they wanted to. I didn't know they woke up anyway, even when they didn't want to. That's the difference no one talks about. That gap between who you are and who you want to become. It's not closed by talent or luck or timing. It's closed by choices, especially the ones you make when everything inside you says not today. That's where my story really begins. It was 6 p.m. on an ordinary Tuesday, the kind of day that feels like every other. Work was over. I was tired. I had just finished scrolling for over an hour on Instagram, watching other people live the life I said I wanted, and I felt it again. That ache, the guilt, the restlessness, the quiet, painful question. Is this really it? I don't know what happened that day, honestly. Maybe I was just sick of myself. Maybe I was tired of lying to myself. Maybe I just finally ran out of excuses. But I stood up. I walked to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror, really looked, and I didn't see a failure. I didn't see someone broken. I didn't even see someone lazy. I saw someone who was scared, someone who was waiting to feel ready, instead of choosing to be ready. And in that moment, I did something I had never done before. I drew a line in the sand, quietly, inside my own head. This is who I am now, not someday, not when I feel like it, not when I have more time or money or confidence. Now, that one sentence changed my life. I went back to my desk. I opened the blank project I had put off for 6 months. I didn't write something perfect. I didn't even finish a page, but I wrote one sentence. Then I wrote another. And the crazy part, I didn't feel magical. I didn't suddenly believe in myself. I was still scared. I was still tired. I still had doubts. But for the first time, I didn't let them decide. That night, something inside me started to wake up. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like a pilot light in a dark room, just a flicker. But it was enough to show up again the next night. Enough to choose growth instead of comfort. Enough to start and starting. That's the hardest part. See, people think it's the grind that breaks you. The late nights, the hard days, the pressure, the rejection. But really, it's the silence before the beginning. The days you wait, the dreams you stall, the life you pause. Because in that stillness, your fears grow loud. They become monsters in your mind. They convince you that action is dangerous, that trying is pointless, that vulnerability is weakness. But they're wrong. Every dream, every single one begins with defiance. Not against the world, against yourself, against that part of you that says, stay small, stay quiet, stay safe. And you know what I've learned? The people who change their lives aren't the ones who feel the most ready. They're the ones who act the most ready. They show up before they're confident. They speak before they're sure. They work when it's hard. They push when no one's watching. That's what I did. That's what I still do. Because the truth is, even now, I don't always feel ready. Some days, I still hear the whispers. I still feel the weight. I still want to quit. But I made a decision. At 6 p.m. on an ordinary day, I drew a line in the sand and said, "This is who I am now." And little by little, hour by hour, that version of me started to come alive. Not because life got easier, but because I stopped waiting. And maybe, just maybe, that's what you need to. Not more time, not more motivation, not another sign from the universe, just a decision, a quiet one, but one that will echo through every part of your future. So if you're standing at your own 6 p.m., if you're staring into the mirror and wondering when it'll be your turn, let me leave you with this before we move on. There will be 1,000 distractions every single day. Your phone, your friends, your doubts, your fatigue, your fear. But the difference between who you are and who you want to become is what you do when you feel those things. Anyone can work when it's easy. Champions work when it's not. Let's talk about what happens after the decision. After you draw your line in the sand. After you say, "This is who I am now." After the first night you show up when you don't feel like it. Because that's where the real story begins. Not with the decision itself, but with what happens the next day, and the next, and the next. Let me be honest. The first few days were easy. I was riding a high, motivated, clear, hopeful. You know that feeling when you finally start something that matters to you? When the idea of the new you fills your lungs, like fresh air. That feeling is real. It's powerful, but it doesn't last. By day 4, the glow faded. By day 7, I felt the drag. By day 10, I was ready to negotiate. I've done enough this week. I deserve a break. I can skip one day. I'll get back on track tomorrow. Sound familiar? That's the voice that creeps in when the honeymoon phase ends. And it always ends. Because eventually, and you can count on this, the work becomes work. The shine wears off. The discipline starts to burn. The distractions get louder again. The urgency of the world seeps back in. And suddenly, that new version of you you're trying to build doesn't feel exciting. It feels exhausting. That's the first storm. And if you're not ready for it, you'll turn back. But I didn't, because I had made a promise to myself. Not the kind you say at midnight and forget by morning. A real one. And keeping that promise, that became the work. Let me walk you through a day in the life of a person becoming someone new. Not the version you see on Instagram. Not the aesthetic. Not the highlight reel. The real version. Morning, you wake up. Your alarm goes off earlier than you want. It's dark. Your bed is warm. Your body is heavy. You don't feel like doing anything meaningful. Your mind whispers, "Just sleep 15 more minutes," but you don't. You sit up, rub your eyes, swing your feet onto the floor. You do the thing, whatever your thing is. Maybe it's writing, maybe it's running, maybe it's praying, meditating, building, planning. You do it tired. You do it quietly. You do it alone. And that right there is where the new you grows. In silence, because no one claps for you at 5:30 in the morning. No one cheers when you show up, and no one else is watching. But you're not doing it for applause. You're doing it for alignment, for integrity, for momentum. Midday, the world comes crashing in. Emails, notifications, conversations. Everyone wants something from you. You feel yourself slipping back into the old you, the reactive one, the one that puts everyone else's needs above your own dreams. You pause, take a breath, and you remind yourself, "I'm different now." You carve out 10 minutes to come back to center. Not because it's easy, but because you have to. Because you have to. If you don't, the day takes you. And if enough days take you, the old you returns. Quietly, like they never left. Evening, this is the hardest part. The fatigue sets in. The motivation is gone. You've already done enough to feel productive. And every part of you wants to check out Netflix, DoorDash, TikTok, anything but the real work. Because the real work, it's boring sometimes, lonely, hard, and it doesn't reward you instantly. You want to feel something, but you've learned, feelings don't build the life you want. Choices do. So you sit down again. You pull up the page, or the plan, or the project, and you put in 30 more minutes. You don't crush it. You don't go viral. You don't finish it, but you stay. You stay in the fight, and that's everything. That's the life of someone rebuilding themselves. It's not dramatic. It's not glamorous. It's not loud. It's 1,000 tiny wins no one sees. It's not skipping the workout. It's choosing water over soda. It's putting your phone in the other room. It's reading 2 pages when you'd rather scroll. It's sending that email making that call, saying no when it's easier to say yes. It's discipline over and over until discipline becomes identity. That's the secret. Discipline first, identity second, motivation last. See, we get it backwards. We wait for motivation. We think we'll act after we feel inspired. But champions don't wait to feel like it. They act their way into feeling. They become before they believe. That's how I became the person I am now. Not overnight, not in a week, but in the days that no one saw. Let me tell you about one of those days. It was a Thursday, rainy. I was already on a bad sleep streak. Deadlines piling up. My personal life was on fire. And to top it all off, the project I'd been working on got rejected. All of it felt pointless. I sat in my car, hands on the steering wheel, and just stared out the window. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to quit. Every voice came back. You're not cut out for this. You'll never make it. This was all a waste of time. I could have gone home. I could have disappeared under the covers. I could have texted, I need a break, but I didn't. I pulled out my phone, opened a blank note, and typed 5 words. This is who I am now. Then I did one small thing, one hard, simple thing. I drove to the gym, even though I didn't want to, even though I didn't care about reps or gains or any of it in that moment. I just needed to prove to myself again that I don't disappear on myself when life gets hard. That single act, it didn't change the world, but it changed me. And that's the point. You don't need to do something huge every day. You just need to stay in the process. You need to keep showing up, especially when you don't feel like it. Because the real you, the one you're building, only comes alive under pressure. Not when things are perfect, but when things fall apart, and you still rise. So here's what I want to leave you with before we move on. Everyone sees the results. No one sees the repetition. Everyone wants the reward. No one wants the resistance. Everyone wants to be transformed. Few are willing to stay in the process long enough for it to happen. But if you do, if you stay in the dark long enough, if you keep choosing the path no one claps for, if you keep writing when no one's reading, keep training when no one's watching, keep building when no one's believing, eventually you become unstoppable, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And that strength, it's built on quiet days, lonely nights, small acts of defiance against your old self. So if you're in the middle of the boring part, if you're deep in the process and no one's noticing, if you're wondering if any of it matters, let me tell you, it does. Because every great story has a chapter no one sees, and you're living that chapter now. Let me start here. You will be tested, not once, not twice, but again and again and again. See, there's this myth that when you make the decision to change your life, to draw your line in the sand, the past just disappears. That once you become disciplined or focused or new, the old you packs up and leaves for good. But that's not true. The old you doesn't leave. They wait, patiently, like a shadow just out of sight, waiting for the moment when your guard is down, and when it is, they knock. Not loudly, not with a bang, but with a whisper. Hey, remember me. Remember how easy things used to be. Remember how comfortable it felt to not try. And if you're not careful, if you're tired or lonely or discouraged enough, you'll open the door. Not because you want to go backward, but because sometimes backward feels safer than stuck. Let me tell you about the time I almost did. It was a Sunday afternoon, one of those days where everything felt heavy. You ever have those? Nothing bad happened, exactly, but everything just felt off. Like the light inside you had dimmed and you couldn't remember how to turn it back on. I was sitting on my couch, laptop open, project in front of me, and I just froze. The cursor blinked, the clock ticked, and I did nothing. For hours. It wasn't burnout. It wasn't even laziness. It was something worse. Apathy. I didn't care. Not in a dramatic way, just in a quiet, hollow kind of way. And that scared me more than any fear ever had. Because fear, at least, meant I still felt something. But this was numb. And then, the old voice came back. You don't have to do this. No one's asking you to. No one would even notice if he stopped. And I believed it. For a moment, I believed it. I closed the laptop. I stood up. I walked to the kitchen and opened the fridge. Not because I was hungry, but because I didn't want to feel anything. And that's how it starts, right? You don't relapse with a breakdown. You relapse with a series of tiny, quiet surrenders. You stop writing. then you stop reading, then you stop moving, then you stop hoping, then the old you slips back in, not with chaos, with comfort, because the old you, they're not evil. They're just familiar. They know how to soothe you in all the wrong ways. They know your escape routes. They know what to say to make you sit back down and shrink. And that's what they did that Sunday. They told me, just rest today. They told me, you're being too hard on yourself. They told me, maybe this isn't your path after all. And I almost agreed. But then, I remembered something. A line I wrote to myself months before, taped to the wall above my desk. Discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. I read it, and I broke. I didn't cry like in the movies. No music played. No sunlight poured through the windows, but something cracked. I sat back down. I opened the laptop. I stared at the screen for 20 minutes. Still didn't write anything. Still didn't know what to say. But I didn't walk away. I stayed. And that was enough. Because that's the thing they don't tell you. About becoming someone new. It's not about always moving forward. It's about not going backward when you really, really want to. Some days, success looks like progress. Other days, it looks like survival. That Sunday, I didn't create anything amazing. I didn't break through, but I also didn't let the old me win. And that is a kind of miracle. Because here's the truth. The old you will always be nearby. But they only win when you invite them back in. And you invite them not with a grand gesture, but with small concessions. I'll skip just one day. I'll start again next week. I've been so good, I deserve to slide a little. It's like erosion. One little wave doesn't break the shore. But over time, with enough of them, the coastline changes, so you have to build walls. Not around your heart, around your habits. You have to create rituals that protect you when you're weak. You have to set boundaries before you break. You have to know in advance what you'll do when apathy knocks. Because it will. Here's what I did. I built a system, not a perfect one, not a productivity hack, a lifeline. I made a rule. When I don't feel like doing the thing, I'll still do 5 minutes, just 5. I made a list, 3 people I could call when I wanted to give up. I made a habit. Every night, before bed, I wrote down one win, just one, even if it was tiny. These sound small. They are, but small things repeated become unstoppable. It's not about the size of the action. It's about the consistency of the identity. And when the old me came knocking again, and they did, I had a lock on the door. Let me tell you about a second time. It was a Friday night. I had just gotten into a fight with someone I loved. The kind of fight that makes your chest feel tight and your hands shake. The kind of fight that makes you question everything. I sat in the parking lot of a grocery store, alone, again, and I could feel it, the urge to disappear, to say, screw it, to delete everything, to stop trying so hard, because what's the point, right? If even the people who love you don't believe in you, then why keep going? But then I remembered something else. Don't let temporary emotions destroy permanent progress. I said it out loud, and then I got out of the car, walked inside, bought a bottle of water, and sat at a table with my laptop for 1 hour. That's it, 1 hour. Tears in my eyes, voice shaking, but I stayed, and that again was enough. Not perfect, not powerful, just present. So let me say this to you, the real you, behind the screen. If the old you is knocking right now, if they're telling you to stop, to rest, to quit, to go back, don't answer the door. Not tonight, not tomorrow. Build your rituals. Call your people. Write your wins. And above all, remember, the difference between who you are and who you want to be is not found in the easy days. It's revealed in the hard ones. In the days when you don't want to keep going, but you do. In the moments when silence feels safer, but you speak. In the hours when giving up is louder, but you stay. That's where the new you is born. Not when the sun shines, but when the storm comes, and you still stand. Let me tell you something people don't prepare you for. They talk about the beginning, how hard it is to start. They talk about the end, how beautiful it is to finish. But almost no one talks about the middle. And the middle, that's where most people quit. Not because they're weak, not because they're lazy, but because the middle is lonely. And when you're in it, it can feel like you're walking through fog. Every step looks the same. No clear destination in sight. No cheering crowd. No sign that says keep going, you're close. Just more of the same. Wake up, try again, work, doubt, work some more. go to bed, repeat, and somewhere between day 30 and day 300, something starts to happen. You wonder if this is really going anywhere. You begin to ask, is all this effort even making a difference? What if I'm just wasting time? What if nothing ever changes? Let me tell you, I've been there, more than once. There was a stretch of weeks, maybe months, when I felt like I was running in place. I was showing up, I was doing the work, but nothing was changing. No big wins, no breakthroughs, just silence on in silence. My friend, is dangerous. Not because it's loud, but because it gets inside your head. It starts whispering, see, you were foolish to try. No one cares about your effort. It's never going to pay off. I remember one night it was raining hard, the kind of downpour that makes the world feel smaller. I had just finished another late-night writing session. No one had read what I wrote. I had no feedback, no audience, no applause. And as I closed my laptop, I thought to myself, does it even matter that I'm doing this? I stood up, walked to the window, and just watched the rain. I felt like I was invisible, not in a poetic way, in a real way, like I could disappear and the world would keep spinning untouched. And in that moment, I almost gave in. I almost stopped. I almost believed a lie that effort without recognition isn't worth it. But then I remembered a story I heard years ago about bamboo. Bamboo is one of the fastest growing plants in the world, but only after it breaks through the soil. See, when you plant a bamboo seed, it doesn't sprout for 5 years. 5 years. 5 years. You water it, you protect it, you feed the soil, and above ground, nothing, just dirt. People walk by and think you're wasting your time. They laugh, they mock, they tell you to try something else. But then, in the 5th year, something wild happens. In just 6 weeks, the bamboo shoots up over 90 feet. 90 feet, in 6 weeks. But the truth is, it wasn't growing in 6 weeks. It was growing the whole time. Underground. Roots were forming. Foundations were strengthening. The invisible work was being done. That story saved me, because it reminded me, the middle feels empty, because that's where the roots go deepest. So I made a deal with myself that night. I said, I'll keep going, not because I feel like it, not because it's glamorous, but because I believe the work is doing something I can't see yet. And you know what? I started treating the silence differently. I stopped seeing it as punishment, and started seeing it as proof. Proof that I was becoming, that I was in the middle. And the middle is where strength is built. You don't get stronger on the mountaintop, you get stronger in the climb. Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, even if it's just inside your own head. Are you in the middle right now? Not at the start, not at the finish, just in it. Are you tired of pushing without seeing results? Are you tempted to stop because no one's watching? Are you wondering if it's worth it? If so, I want to tell you something no one told me. You're not failing. You're not broken. You're not falling behind. You're just in the lonely middle. And the middle is where transformation actually happens. Because it's in the middle that you stop chasing motivation and start building discipline. You stop needing validation and start trusting your process. You stop living for outcomes and start falling in love with effort. The middle is where you learn to keep your head down and your heart up. The middle is where you get to decide for real who you are. But here's the catch. The middle doesn't tell you when it ends. There's no buzzer, no announcement, no flashing sign that says, breakthrough incoming. The middle ends when you keep going long enough to reach the other side. It ends when you push through one more day, and then another dot, until the roots break the surface, and the world finally sees what you've been building in the dark. One day, months after that rainy night, I got a message from someone I didn't know, a stranger. They had found something I created, something I wrote when I felt invisible, something I almost didn't publish. And they said, this saved me, please don't stop. I sat there, phone in hand, staring at that message, and I cried, not because of the praise, but because of the timing, because I realized all those nights I felt like nothing mattered. They did. Every silent effort, every invisible choice, every lonely step, they mattered, because they were the middle. And the middle is where your real story begins. So let me leave you with this before we move on. You don't need to see the results today. You don't need the world's applause. You don't need every day to feel magical. You just need to keep going, because the middle is not the end. It's the beginning of who you're becoming. And if you can survive the middle, you can become anything. Let me take you back to something personal. Not the motivational part, not the speech, but the heart of it. Because beneath all the discipline, the schedules, the cold mornings, the lonely middles, beneath every part of the grind, there was something I didn't understand until much later. I wasn't just trying to become successful. I wasn't just chasing a dream. I wasn't just building a future. I was trying to become someone I needed a long time ago. Someone I didn't have. Someone who never showed up. Someone who could have saved me from myself. And when you're building yourself up from broken pieces, you don't always realize that. At first, it looks like ambition. Then it looks like obsession. Then it starts to look like healing. Let me explain. There's a version of you, maybe it's the kid you used to be, or the younger you who had no idea what life would throw at them, and that version is still inside, whispering, "I wish someone had told me I was enough. I wish someone had protected me. I wish someone had seen me. I wish someone had stayed." And for a long time, you wait. You wait for that person to show up. A mentor, a guide, a friend, a voice. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just you, staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering how you ended up here. And if you're not careful, you carry that emptiness into everything you do. Your work, your relationships, your self-worth. You start building from a place of lack, trying to prove you're not the weak one anymore, trying to silence the voice that said you'd never be good enough. And that can work for a while, but eventually you burn out. Because no amount of hustle can fix a heart that's still bleeding. That's where I found myself. Somewhere between grinding every day and crying myself to sleep. Somewhere between discipline and despair. Somewhere between pretending I was strong and feeling like I'd never actually be. And one night, the night that changed everything, I broke. Not in front of anyone, alone in the quiet, in a bathroom mirror, eyes red, chest tight. I remember whispering, "What's the point?" and not having an answer, until I asked a different question. What if the point is to become the person I needed? That hit me like a wave, because suddenly all the pain made sense. All the nights I had to figure it out alone. All the moments I wanted someone to come rescue me. All the failures, all the fear, all the isolation. That it wasn't for nothing. It was training to become someone I would have looked up to. Training to become the kind of person who doesn't run when things get hard. The kind of person who speaks up, shows up, stays. And from that moment on, the way I showed up changed. I stopped chasing outcomes, and I started chasing integrity. I stopped asking, what do I need to do to win? And I started asking, what kind of person do I want to be proud of when no one's watching? That changes everything, because when your goal is to impress people, your discipline is shallow. But when your goal is to become who you needed, your discipline is rooted in something deeper. It's no longer about followers, or money, or status, or perfection. It's about wholeness. So here's what I started doing. I wrote a letter to my younger self, the broken one, and I told them I'd take it from here. I made decisions not based on fear or FOMO, but based on who I promised I'd become. I stopped waiting for someone to save me, and I started showing up for myself. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, I became that person. Not overnight, not without falling, but fully. I became the kind of person who keeps promises to themselves, who shows compassion to their own scars, who builds from love instead of lack. And when you do that, when you become who you needed, you don't just change your life, you change your story. Because suddenly, the pain wasn't pointless. It was a prologue. Every failure, a teacher, every breakdown, a turning point, every lonely moment, a forging fire. And now I get to stand here and tell you, you're allowed to become everything you once begged the world to give you. So let me ask you something. Who did you need? Not just when you were a child, but last year, last month, last night. Did you need someone calm in the storm? Someone who wouldn't leave? Someone who said, I see you and I'm not going anywhere? Be that person. Don't wait for them. Don't resent the people who didn't show up. Don't keep bleeding over the same memory. Take that pain and build with it. Build a version of yourself who doesn't abandon themselves when things get hard, who doesn't crumble at criticism, who doesn't need applause to feel alive. Build that person, then live like they're real, because they are. You are. You're more real than you know, more powerful than you've let yourself believe. Becoming who you needed doesn't mean you're always strong. It means you know how to hold space for yourself. When you're not, it means you've learned how to stay even when the storm rages. how to speak even when your voice shakes, how to rise even when everything inside you says stay down. That's strength. That's healing. That's the work. And yes, it's hard, because the world will keep distracting you. Your phone, your doubts, your fear, your fatigue. But every time you choose to stay present, you're becoming. Every time you show up, you're becoming. Every time you say, this is who I am now, even when it hurts, you're becoming. Let me leave you with this before we move on. You don't have to chase validation. You don't have to wait to feel ready. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You just have to become who you needed. That's the real work. That's the legacy. And if you do it right, if you show up day after day, building that version of you, one day, someone else will say, I didn't give up because you didn't. And in that moment, you'll know all of it was worth it. Let me say something that might hurt a little, but you need to hear it. When you start changing, when you draw that line in the sand and say, this is who I am now, not everyone in your life will come with you. Some will cheer you on, some will fall away, and some, the ones who said they'd always be there, will quietly step back when your growth makes them uncomfortable, and you'll have to learn how to keep walking anyway. See, I didn't expect that. No one told me that choosing discipline meant losing people. No one warned me that becoming myself might mean being misunderstood by the people who once felt like home. I thought if I leveled up, everyone would be proud. I thought if I got better, stronger, more focused, the people in my life would meet me there. But that's not always how it works. Because growth, it shines a light. And sometimes, that light makes other people squint. Sometimes it shows them what they've been avoiding in themselves. Sometimes it reminds them of the promises they've broken, the dreams they've buried, the work they're not doing. And instead of saying, teach me, they say, you've changed. I remember one conversation in particular. Someone I loved, someone I would have done anything for, looked me in the eye one day and said, you're not fun anymore. And I laughed, kind of awkwardly, like maybe they were joking, but they weren't. What they meant was, you don't waste time with me like you used to. You don't drink away your pain with me anymore. You don't sit in the same circle of excuses I'm sitting in. And they were right. I had changed. I wasn't available in the same way. I wasn't always reachable. I wasn't always up for another distraction or another just one night, because I had chosen me, not in a selfish way, in a survival way. I was rebuilding my life, and that required sacrifice, including, sometimes, the comfort of old connections. Here's what they don't tell you. When you start healing, you stop relating to chaos. When you start working on yourself, you stop finding dysfunction attractive. When you start honoring your time, you stop tolerating people who waste it. And that can be lonely. Because suddenly, your circle gets smaller, your phone gets quieter, the invitations dry up. And it feels like loss. But really, it's just alignment. The deeper you step into your truth, the more anything that isn't truth will fall away. It's not personal, it's spiritual, it's your energy shifting. And not everyone is meant to follow. So what do? You grieve. Yes, you grieve. You let yourself feel the sting of losing people who mattered. You cry over the versions of you they knew, the old you, the softer, smaller, more available one. You let your heart ache, but you don't go back. Because going back to who you were, just to keep people who don't support who you're becoming, that's a betrayal. Not of them, of yourself. And you've betrayed yourself enough times to know it's not worth it. But here's the good news. As some people fall away, others show up. New people, aligned people. People who don't flinch at your ambition. People who don't mock your morning routine or minimize your boundaries. People who hear you say, I'm doing this for me, and respond, I see you, keep going. I call them the ones who stay, and you don't need many of them. One is enough. One person who holds space for the real you, the growing you, is worth more than 100 people who only loved your convenience. There was someone like that in my life. We weren't close at first. They just kind of showed up one day at the right time, in the right way, and they didn't try to fix me. They didn't give me advice I didn't ask for. They just listened. They saw me trying, really trying, and instead of saying, you'll get there, they said, you're already doing it. I'm proud of you. That broke something open in me, because when you're rebuilding from the inside out, and someone meets you mid-process, and loves you anyway, that's rare, that's holy, and that's how you know they're safe. So here's what I've learned. Not everyone deserves access to your becoming. Not everyone gets to have a front row seat to your growth. Not everyone will understand why you're changing, and they don't have to. You're not here to make people comfortable. You're here to become, and sometimes becoming means outgrowing people who don't want to grow. It's not cruel. It's not selfish. It's the cost of becoming someone new, and the ones who are meant for you. They won't be intimidated by your evolution. They won't ask you to dim your light. They won't flinch when you tell them your dreams. They'll say, "Let's go. I'm right behind you. Let me leave you with this before we move on." Losing people is hard, but losing yourself to keep them, that's harder. Choose you, even if it means walking alone for a while, even if it means being misunderstood, even if it means fewer phone calls, fewer parties, fewer comfort zones, because eventually, the people who see you really see you, will find you, and when they do, you'll realize you never needed the ones who left. You just needed you to stop leaving yourself behind. There will come a night, maybe tonight, maybe some night soon, where everything in you screams, "I can't do this anymore." And I need you to know, that moment is sacred. It's not the end. It's not failure. It's the threshold. It's the place where most people walk away, turn back, lie down, disappear. But if you can stay, just one more hour, one more night, one more breath, you will never be the same again. Let me tell you about my night. It started like any other, late, quiet, heavy. I had been doing everything right for months, waking up early, doing the work, saying no to distractions, stacking up days of discipline like bricks, trying to build something solid out of all the chaos I used to live in. But this night hit differently. I had just gotten bad news. The kind of news that unravels you slowly, not with a bang, but with a slow leak of everything you've been holding together. I sat on the floor, lights off, phone face down, laptop closed, and for the first time in a long time, I whispered out loud, "I don't know if I can keep doing this." I meant it, not as a dramatic statement, not for sympathy, but because something inside me genuinely broke that night. It wasn't about effort. I was trying. It wasn't about talent. I had grown. It wasn't even about doubt. I still believed in the vision. It was about weariness, the kind that lives deep in your bones. The kind of exhaustion you can't fix with a nap or a weekend off. The kind of tired that comes from carrying hope for too long without any proof it's working. That's where I was. And honestly, that's where a lot of people give up. And no one blames them. Because that's the thing about breaking points. They're quiet. They don't come with fireworks. They come with silence. The kind of silence that wraps around your neck and whispers, "Just stop. No one will notice." But somehow, even as my body screamed lie down, something deeper inside whispered back, "Get up." Not loud, not powerful, just true. And maybe you've heard that voice too. The one that doesn't yell, the one that doesn't beg, the one that just knows you've come too far, knows you've given too much, knows you can't end the story here. So I stood up. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel ready. I didn't even feel awake, but I stood. I walked to the bathroom, washed my face, looked in the mirror, and said, through gritted teeth, "We don't quit like this." That night, I didn't write anything profound. I didn't post anything. I didn't conquer my demons. I just stayed. And that is what changed everything. Because the truth is, most transformations don't happen in daylight. They happen in the dark. In the 3 a.m. moments. In the whisper fights between your fear and your future. They happen when no one's watching. When no one's clapping. When no one even knows what you're carrying. They happen when you're this close to letting go. And you don't. Let me tell you what happens the night you don't quit. You don't get a trophy. You don't get clarity. You don't even get instant relief. What you get is evidence. Evidence that you're not who you used to be. Because the old you would have tapped out. The old you would have disappeared. The old you would have drowned in that silence. But you stayed. You stayed through the ache, through the confusion, through the shaking hands and shallow breath. You stayed when it would have been easier, safer, to walk away. And that's when the real you is born. I can tell you now, on the other side of that night, everything changed. Not all at once, not in a dramatic comeback montage, but in small, steady ways. I started to trust myself again. Not because I was perfect, but because I saw what I did when everything went wrong. And you don't learn that on good days. You don't learn that when everything's working. You learn it in the dark, when the storm hits, and you plant your feet anyway. So let me speak to you now. If you're in that night, your night. I want you to hear me clearly. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to break. You're allowed to be tired, overwhelmed, scared, but you are not allowed to disappear on yourself. Not now. Not like this, because you've come too far. And whether anyone else sees it or not, you know it. You know what you've survived. You know what it's cost. You know how much you've grown, so don't dishonor that by quitting 5 minutes before sunrise. Here's the thing, the sun always rises. Always. You might not see it yet. You might be deep in the valley, but dawn is coming. And when it does, when that light breaks through, you will be so proud you didn't stop. So proud you stayed. So proud you fought. So proud you chose yourself, even when no one else did. Because the night you don't quit, that becomes your origin story. That's the night you'll point to and say, right there, that's when everything changed. Not because everything got easier, but because you got stronger. Let me leave you with this, before we move on. The next time it feels like the end, the next time silence surrounds you, the next time quitting feels like the only option, remember, you are not the version of you who gives up anymore. You are the version who stays, who breathes, who breaks, and still keeps going. And if you can get through this night, you can get through anything. Let me tell you a secret. The breakthrough doesn't come when you're looking for it. It doesn't show up the moment you hit publish, or after a week of discipline, or when you finally feel ready. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It doesn't knock first. It doesn't check to see if you're in a good mood. Breakthroughs show up unannounced, usually on the day you almost didn't show up at all. And if you're not careful, you'll miss them. Not because they're invisible, but because they don't look like what you expected. I always thought breakthrough meant something big. The book deal, the viral post, the dream opportunity, the life-changing phone call. But that's not what mine looked like. Mine came on a Wednesday, around 2 p.m. in my inbox. But let me back up. That morning, I almost didn't work. I had gotten no sleep the night before. Doubt had been eating away at me for days. And every voice in my head was shouting, what's the point anymore? Sound familiar? That slow spiral into apathy, that sense of being invisible, that fear that all your effort is just evaporating into thin air. Yeah, I was there, and I almost did the thing we all do when it gets like that. Close the laptop, check out for the day, say, I'll try again tomorrow. But I didn't. Not because I was motivated, not because I was confident, not because I had a plan. I showed up because I said I would, and about 4 hours later, that message came in. It was short, to the point, from a person I'd never met, someone who had stumbled across something I wrote, someone I hadn't marketed to, hadn't targeted, hadn't even known existed. But they said something that I'll never forget. I don't know who you are, but I needed this more than I can explain. You saved me today. Thank you. And that was it. No job offer, no contract, no spotlight, just one human telling another, you mattered today. And for me, that was the breakthrough. Because here's what no one tells you. Your real breakthrough isn't the moment when the world sees you. It's the moment you start seeing yourself differently. It's not when the money comes, or when the followers show up, or when your inbox explodes. It's when you realize you've become someone who keeps showing up, someone who chooses effort over ease, integrity over image, substance over shortcuts. That kind of identity. It doesn't just happen. It's built brick by brick, late night by late night, silent victory by silent victory. You want to know what most people miss? They quit right before the shift, not a month before, not a week before, the day before, because that's when it gets loud, that's when it gets lonely, that's when it gets heavy, and that's when the mind starts to lie. This is pointless, no one cares, it's never going to happen. But that pressure, that weight, that's resistance. And resistance doesn't mean you're off course, it means you're getting close. Imagine a runner nearing the finish line, lungs burning, legs shaking. They don't feel stronger in that final stretch. They feel spent, but they don't stop, because they know the pain means they're almost there. That's what breakthroughs feel like. Not relief, but resistance. And the trick is this: don't trust your feelings in that moment. Trust your commitment, the promise you made on a better day, the line you drew in the sand, the version of you that said, no matter what, we don't stop now. That voice, that inner captain, is the one that gets you through. Here's the wild part. Sometimes your breakthrough isn't even for you, it's for the person watching you. The one you don't know is paying attention. The one who sees your consistency and thinks, maybe I can keep going too. Because make no mistake, someone is watching you, your kid, your friend, a stranger online, even your future self, and every time you choose to keep moving, you're showing them it's possible. Let me tell you about another day, a random Tuesday this time. I had been building something quietly for months. No big announcement, no real audience, just me, a notebook, and a dream. That day, I got a message from someone who had been following quietly for a long time. They said, "I've been watching you. You don't post flashy stuff. You're not the loudest voice, but you never stop showing up. And that's why I trust you." That was worth more than 1,000 likes. Because that's what trust is. Built on not charisma, not perfection, consistency. That's your real breakthrough. When people stop clapping for what you do and start trusting who you are. So let me ask you something. Are you showing up today, even though no one's clapping, even though the numbers aren't moving, even though your heart feels a little heavy and your mind is full of doubt? Good. Because that means you're getting closer than you think. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not even this month, you'll look back and say, "That day, I almost quit. That was the day everything started to change." Let me leave you with this. Before we move on, your breakthrough is coming. Not in the way you expect, not on the timeline you planned, but it's coming, and it won't come to the version of you who stops. It'll come to the version who stays, who shows up, who gets up, who keeps going, even when it's boring, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, especially when it's quiet, because that's where breakthroughs are born. In the shadows, in the silence, in the space between who you were and who you're becoming. So if today feels small, good, that means you're right on time. You won't know the exact day it happens. You won't wake up to confetti. There won't be music playing in the background. No one will knock on your door and hand you a certificate that says you've made it. But one day you'll be walking or working or folding laundry or pouring your coffee, and it will hit you. You're not who you used to be. You're steadier, quieter, calmer, more you than you've ever been. And for the first time in a long time, maybe ever, you'll stop, look around, and realize it finally makes sense. Let me tell you what that moment feels like. It doesn't feel loud. It doesn't feel overwhelming. It feels peaceful. Like all the noise that's been chasing you for years finally runs out of breath. Like all the doubt that used to keep you up at night suddenly has no power here. Like all the versions of you that tried so hard to prove themselves can finally sit down, exhale, and rest. And not because you've arrived at some magical finish line, but because you've become someone who no longer needs one. That's what no one tells you about growth. It doesn't always end in applause. It doesn't always wrap itself up in a highlight reel. Sometimes it ends like this. You walk into a room that used to scare you, and you don't shrink. You open an email that used to trigger your anxiety, and you respond calmly. You face a conversation you used to avoid, and you tell the truth. No fireworks, no spotlight, just evidence. Evidence that the work is working. And here's the part that might make you cry. One day, someone will meet you, someone brand new, and they'll have no idea who you used to be. They won't see the years you spent breaking and rebuilding. They won't see the nights you cried yourself to sleep. They won't know how many times you almost walked away from it. All they'll just see you, steady, present, rooted, and they'll think, wow, this person is so grounded, so confident, so calm, and you'll smile, a quiet, knowing smile, because you'll remember, I built this, not overnight, not easily, not perfectly, but honestly. Let me tell you something I've never said out loud before. For a long time, I thought I was faking it. I thought I had to act strong. I thought I had to pretend I was okay. I thought if I just looked the part, eventually I'd feel the part too. But real growth, it doesn't come from pretending. It comes from staying through the messy parts, through the slow seasons, through the days when you're holding yourself together with nothing but a deep breath and a shaky prayer. That's where the roots grow. Not in your perfection, but in your presence. So if you're wondering when it will all start to make sense, here's the truth. It already is. It just doesn't look like you thought it would. You thought it would feel like winning, but it feels like peace. You thought it would look like being celebrated, but it looks like being centered. You thought it would be loud, but it's quiet. That's how you know it's real, because real doesn't need to be loud. Real just is. You'll start to notice small things, like how you don't explain yourself as much anymore, how you don't chase people who don't choose you, how you say no without apologizing, how you don't feel guilty for resting, how you protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. And you'll realize that version of you who used to settle for chaos, they're gone. Not in a dramatic way, not with a goodbye letter, but in a mature way. They didn't need to be fought, they just needed to be outgrown. You'll still have hard days, you'll still feel fear, you'll still get triggered, still doubt, still cry, but it won't shake you like it used to, because now your foundation isn't built on hype, it's built on habits. You've stacked enough quiet victories to know you don't fall like you used to. You bend, you breathe, you rebuild, but you don't break. And that's growth. So here's what I want you to do when that day comes, and it will, when you suddenly realize you're different now. Pause, soak it in, don't rush past it. Don't look for the next mountain, don't ask, what's next, just yet. Let yourself feel the miracle of it, because it is a miracle. To become someone who doesn't abandon themselves anymore. To become someone who can walk into chaos and carry calm. To become someone who doesn't perform for acceptance, but lives from authenticity. That kind of becoming. It's rare, and it's yours. Let me leave you with this before we move on. Your story won't have one big finish line. It will have many quiet moments of realization. Moments when you look around and realize, I'm here, and I didn't give up. That's what matters most. Not the noise, not the likes, not the outside validation, but the inner knowing that you stayed, that you grew, that you became. And the next time someone looks at you and says, you make it look so easy, smile, because you'll know it wasn't easy. It was just worth it. Let me leave you with this one last time, before we move on, before you click away, before you put your phone down, before you disappear back into the noise of life. I want to say something that I hope stays with you longer than this story. Something simple, but sacred. You were always worth it, even when you didn't believe it, even when you were falling apart, even when you were barely holding on, even in the worst moment you ever had, even in the smallest version of yourself you've ever been, even when you gave up, broke down, lost everything, or started over. You were still worth it, not because you proved anything, not because you finally got it together, but because you showed up again and again and again, even when it hurt, even when it was quiet, even when no one else saw the fight. You kept going, and that makes you a warrior in a world full of quitters. Let's pause here. Let's not move on just yet. I want you to see something clearly. Honestly, I want you to see what you've done. Not the metrics, not the achievements, not the stuff people clap for, but the miracles no one saw. You pulled yourself out of that hole when you thought you'd never feel okay again. You made yourself get up when your heart was shattered into 1,000 pieces. You showed up to work, to life, to love, with a smile when you were crumbling on the inside. You chose to grow when it would have been easier to numb, run, or hide. That's not small, that's everything, because anyone can look good when life is easy. But you chose the hard road, the real road, the honest road, and even when it got lonely you kept going. Even when it made no sense, you kept going. Even when your knees hit the floor, you rose anyway. Do you know how rare that is? Do you know how many people live their whole lives never daring to choose themselves? You didn't just dream about it, you became it, not by magic, by moments, small, consistent, painful, brave moments. You changed in the dark, you rebuilt in silence, you walked through fire, barefoot and still, found a way to love again. And now here you are, standing in the very future you once thought you'd never survive to see. And no, it's not perfect, and no, it's not easy, but it's real, and so are you. You've outgrown things you never thought you could live without. You've learned to set boundaries you once feared would make people leave. You've made peace with your past, not because it stopped hurting, but because you stopped letting it define you. You've learned to sit with yourself in the silence and not run. You've learned to ask better questions, not what's wrong with me, but what do I need right now? Not why did they hurt me, but why did I stay? Not when will it get easier, but how can I stay soft in the middle of this storm? And that's transformation. But maybe you're still in it. Maybe the breakthrough hasn't come yet. Maybe the quiet still feels suffocating. Maybe you still feel a little lost, a little behind, a little too far gone. If that's you, listen to me, please. You're not broken, you're becoming. And becoming is messy. Becoming is lonely. Becoming is full of detours and delays and doubts. But you're doing it. Every time you breathe through a panic attack, Every time you get out of bed when depression says stay. Every time you choose not to numb your pain with distractions or people who don't see you. You're doing it. You're showing up. You're doing the work. You're telling the truth. You're feeling what needs to be felt. And that is brave. So here's what I want you to promise me before you move on. Before you move on, promise me this, that when life gets heavy again, and it will, you'll remember what you learned here. You'll remember to trust your commitment more than your feelings, to rest without guilt, to keep your word to yourself before anyone else, to not wait for motivation, but to move with discipline, to let go of people who need you to stay small, to feel safe, to show up messy, to tell the truth when it shakes, to feel the fear and do it anyway, to never forget this version of you is a miracle, not because you're finished, but because you refused to stop. And when the distractions come, and they will, your phone, your friends, your doubts, your fatigue, your fear, when they whisper, come back to comfort, come back to numbness, come back to the version of you who was easier to control. You'll remember this moment, and you'll say, no, this is who I am now. You'll remember the line you drew in the sand. You'll remember the night you didn't quit. You'll remember the middle you survived. You'll remember the person you needed and became. You'll remember the quiet, holy breakthrough that didn't come with a spotlight. And you'll remember the most powerful truth I can leave with you. You don't need permission to change your life. You just need a decision, and you already made it. So take this version of you, the tired one, the hopeful one, the healing one, and walk into the next chapter like you own it. Because you do, you earned it, you built it, you became it, and now it's time to live it. Before you go, please know, I'm proud of you, not because you finished this story, but because you started your own. And that's the most beautiful story of all.